and he stayed with her and then he started teaching in Boston. And then from Boston, which is 11, then from Boston to Philadelphia, which became number 12. And from Philadelphia and Brother Captain Yusuf Shah was from Detroit also. He came out with them. They were really close and worked together.
Okay, Brother Minister, we're live now, sir.
Okay.
Now I want to thank everyone for tuning in to a very special edition of Off the Record this evening. We have an illustrious guest, one who has literally helped lay the foundation that we stand on, and the future generations shall stand on as well. Minister Thomas Jehad. First of all, we want to give you the greetings. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Wa alaikum salam.
Yes, sir. And thank you very much for your sacrifice and the sacrifice that your family has made. And thank everyone for tuning in. How did you first hear the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, sir?
Well, I left home at the age of 14. I was born in Bennettsville, South Carolina in 1935. And by the time I was a teenager at 14, I left my father's house and pretty much on my own. After that, I found myself as a young teenager in New York City, Brooklyn. And I matured very fast, early. I quit school. By the time I got to New York, I was probably reading on a 3rd grade level, but I had a lot of mother wit, and I'd learned a lot. I knew how to work, and I took a temporary position at the age of 17 down on the docks in Brooklyn, New York, at the age of 17, and there I met the brothers. They had taken those positions also as longshoremen, and there was about 7 or 8 of them. Brother Charles Bobbick, Charles AX, he was one of them. He had heard the teachings about a month before I did. And Brother James Adex, he's the one who fished us in. The captain at the time, he was working there too, but it was James Adex who fished us into the nation. So at the age of 17, I processed into the nation. And while I was in processing, Malcolm became the minister of New York City.
Praise be to Allah. Yes, sir. What was it about the teachings at that time for you to be such a young man that drew you, that made you want to join the nation?
It was the patience of Brother James Adex. May Allah be pleased with him.
Yes, sir.
And he had patience, and I would ask him questions. He would answer my questions. And until it became a point where one day I asked, because he would teach me during the day. I would go back on the corner in Brooklyn at night, and I'd have a crowd around me, all of my friends that we grew up together in South Carolina who had migrated to Brooklyn. I would be teaching at night. And when they would ask me questions I could not answer, I said, well, I'll let you know tomorrow night. And I would go and ask him, and he would inform me, and I could bring the answers back to them. So one night, we started to get into these discussions, and I told them that according to the Bible, Solomon said, "I am black but comely, O ye daughters of Jerusalem."
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And they told me I was crazy. Show them where it was in the Bible. Well, I didn't know where it was in the Bible. Yes, so I said, well, I'll let you know tomorrow night. I went back to the job the next day, and I asked him, and he made a parable to me. He said, he said, you've been promising me that you were coming to hear the teachings and you're interested in it. He said, if you were thirsty, and each time you asked me for a glass of water, if I gave it to you, you'd never go to the fountain yourself. He said, but if you were really thirsty and I told you where the fountain was, you'd go and get your own water.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So I said, yes, I promise you I'll be there this weekend, but please, I need this answer. He would not give it to me. And so one Wednesday night, that next Wednesday night, for the Charles X. Bobbitt, who was processing at the time,
yes, sir,
came by my house, picked me up in Brooklyn. We went to Manhattan.
yes, sir.
And the brother who was the assistant was teaching that night, and he really didn't do it for me. So they told me if I come back on that Sunday, they guarantee all my questions would be answered. And that Sunday, because he said he was not the minister, New York didn't have a minister at that time.
Yes, sir, yes, sir.
So I went back that Sunday, and they introduced a brother who had lived with the Hon Elijah Muhammad for 3.5 years in his home. That before he became a Muslim, he was a Seventh-day Adventist minister. He was a 32nd degree Mason. They introduced Minister Lucius BR, at that time, Lucius X. And he taught that day. And I remember I'd never heard a man with so much knowledge. And I remember the way he started his lecture off. He started talking about knowledge and the different degrees of knowledge.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
He said there's inferred knowledge, positive knowledge, and conclusive knowledge. He said, if you look across a field and you see smoke, you have inferred knowledge that there's fire there. If you walk up to the smoke and you see the flames with your eyes, he said, you have positive knowledge that there's fire there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
He said, if you take your hand and stick it into the flames and you feel the flames, he said, that's conclusive knowledge, and that's the greatest degree of knowledge you can attain. And he just went on and on. By the time he finished, I stood up and accepted Islam, and have been a Muslim ever since. And that was 66 years ago in 1953.
Praise be to Allah. Yes, sir. All praise be to Allah. Wonderful. How did you get into the ministry and end up working as an assistant to Malcom X?
Well, I was so enthused over the teaching and this knowledge that I had grown up in the South, and I was learning things that I had never known. And I started to study, and I was in those same conversations in Brooklyn. So when Malcolm came, everything just was elevated. And I used to have on Sundays carloads, sometimes 3, 4, 5 cars coming from Brooklyn over to Manhattan to hear Malcolm.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And I fished in out from Bennettsville. I must have fished in about 10, 15 people, and my brother, my sister, many friends I grew up with, plus others.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And I didn't understand it, but I guess Malcolm and Captain Yusuf Shah saw that they saw leadership in me. And so evidently Captain Yusuf Shah made me a lieutenant. So I became a lieutenant by the time I was 18. And I also moved from Brooklyn to Manhattan, and I lived with Captain Yusuf Shah in his home, and it was 4 of us, 4 brothers, and I learned so much. May Allah be pleased with him and his beautiful wife, Sister Sylvia. She just returned to Allah recently, but may Allah be pleased with them. I learned so much from that brother. Malcolm taught the people, but Captain Yusuf Shah made soldiers of them. And he taught me economically. He set us down, the 4 of us. He said, the 4 of us in the house. He said, I don't remember the figures, but our light bill, our rent, all of these expenses, he said, okay, if it was $400, he said, that's $100 each. He said, I want to see $25 a week. I'll buy the groceries. I'll make sure everything. The groceries mean your staples.
Yes, sir.
If you want dessert, that's on you. When the telephone bill come in, everybody look at it, because that time you had long distance calls.
Yes, sir.
Each long distance call you make, you initial, because that don't come with the basic phone bill. That's extra. And
Yes,
he
sir.
said, you will save some money and you'll contribute to the cause. Well, I saved about 75% of it because I was spending it by myself in Brooklyn. Now it's splitting it four ways.
Yes,
I
sir.
saved tremendously, and I have not been broke since. And we can talk about that
Yes, sir.
as we go along, because
Yes, sir.
if there are young people listening, I have a lot of things to say to you about debt-free living. Continue. Yes, sir.
Wonderful. I want to just read some of the comments. Brother Marcellus, this is powerful right there. 66 years in the paint. My sister Miriam, a faithful servant. Thank you for your dedication and service to our nation. Absolutely. And thank you all for continuing to watch and show love to Brother Minister Thomas Jehad. Yes, sir. Now, once I didn't know that you lived with Captain Yusuf Shah, but that's an amazing history. Once, how was your relationship with Malcom X behind the scenes? Not necessarily so much in the work, but how were y'all friends? Was it a working relationship? What was that like?
Well, Malcolm was about the work, and we had a great relationship because after becoming lieutenant, by the time when I turned 19, in 1955, Minister Farrakhan heard the messenger in Chicago, and he came back to New York. So he came into the nation in New York City in 1955. And I was 19 at the time. He was 21. So I had a 2-year head start on him.
Yes, sir.
And I was at his first FOI class.
Crazy. And
when Captain Yusuf Shah called him that night before the men, I was there. Brother Bobbitt was there, Charles Bobbitt, Charles AX, Mustafa.
Yes, sir.
Brother Najee was there. My younger brother Owens was there. And myself and Brother Najee, we are still alive. We're still here. But he said that night to us that he had been looking for a man like this, meaning the Hon Elijah Muhammad, all the days of his life.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And he pledged to us that night. He said, I will take this message to every nook and every cranny throughout the hills of North America. And tears were coming down his eyes when he said it. And he has kept his word bond.
Absolutely.
He has taken this message all over the world.
Praise be to Allah. Yes, sir. Wonderful. What was it like for you to have a personal relationship with the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad?
Well, first it was a relationship with Malcolm, and I became an assistant, and then the minister became an assistant, because one Wednesday night, it's a Wednesday night or a Friday night, Malcolm used to ask Muslims to come up and say what Islam has done for them.
Yes, sir. Yes,
and
sir.
One Wednesday night, he asked Minister Farrakhan to come and tell us what Islam had done for him. And he lit up the place. And so he became an assistant. And then by the end of 1955, a brother, Robert J., who and we used to be fishing partners. And we would fish together. And so we had determined to leave and go to his hometown, where his family was from, in Alabama, and start to teach. Because Malcolm had a lot of assistants, and he would say, hey, you need to find another city. Sometimes he'd teach a subject called The Eagle Stirred the Nest.
Yeah, okay, yes, sir.
On a Friday night, and that means it's time for you to find a city to start teaching Islam.
Yes, sir.
So Robert J. and I had planned to go to Alabama. And we were leaving on a certain Friday. And in the meantime, Malcolm went to Chicago to meet with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And Brother Robert J. didn't get off in time to get his clothing out of the cleaners, so we had to wait. And so in meeting with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Malcolm told him that he had 2 brothers that were going to Alabama to teach Islam. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad asked him, said, why would you do that? He said, why would you let them go to Alabama? He said, you already have a little group in Hartford, Connecticut. He said, don't let them go to Alabama, send them to Hartford. And that's how I got to Hartford, Connecticut. He called us, told us to hold up. And we went to Hartford, Connecticut, and I became the minister. Robert J. became my assistant. And so by the time I was 21, I had number 14, which was Hartford, number 13, which is another, which is 26 miles away in Springfield, Massachusetts. And pretty soon we had a study group going in New Haven. So, so that's when I would see the messenger in Chicago, and when we'd go to Chicago, but that was when my relationship with the Hon Elijah Muhammad became to fruition. And by the end of 1955, Minister Farrakhan went to Boston and he became the captain. And before the year was out, he became the minister. So then we were only 90 miles away for the next 10 years. He was in Boston, I was in Hartford and Springfield. So, and we would trade cities, but when visiting ministers came to Hartford to teach, they had to teach twice on Sundays because we taught 2 o'clock in Hartford and 5 o'clock that evening in Springfield. And oftentimes, although Boston was like 70 miles from Springfield, the minister would come to Springfield. He'd teach in Boston at 2 and get a little something to eat, hit the road, and come to Springfield to teach in Springfield for me, so I wouldn't have to teach twice every Sunday. But so our relationship really grew over the next 2 years, because then we began to travel to Chicago and meet with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and it was just a beautiful relationship. Yes, sir.
Praise be to Allah. And thank you all for watching and commenting. Brother James X, I don't know how to say your name, sir. I'm gonna butcher it. Says Hartfield loves you. What was it like to sit and hear from the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad at his table? What was that like?
To me, that's where the Honorable Elijah, this is my personal feeling, was at his best. At his table. Just as if you've been at the table of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan today, well, he learned that from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Yes, sir.
And so we sat around the table, we took notes, and Malcolm took better notes than I took, but the minister took better notes than everybody, because he
yes,
had,
sir. Yes, sir.
To this day, he has stacks of those pads that journalists use. It's if you know the kind of pads that journalists use, he has stacks of those pads of notes that he took from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad at his table. So I haven't had a car payment, a car note, since 1965. And the reason that I have not had a car note since the 1965 is because of something the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said at his table in 1963. And the reason I can remember the dates so well is because in 1963, the car that I was driving, I had 2 more years to pay the note on it. So sitting at his table, a Minister Isaiah Kareem, who was the minister in Baltimore, Maryland, number 6.
Yes, sir.
They had just refurbished a new building. They were doing very well. They were growing, but his car was in disrepair and it was always breaking down. So at the table that Sunday, I guess it was a Sunday, but all of us had met with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and he told the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that he'd gone to the Chevrolet dealership and he'd priced his Chevrolet. It was listed for a certain price.
Yes, sir.
And he had gotten them down to a certain price, and he'd like permission to get the car. And to paraphrase the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he said, no matter what price you're paying, you're still getting beat. And in essence, if you took the car back to the dealership the day after you purchased it, what they will give you for it is what you should have been paying for it the day before.
Yes,
So
sir.
he said, brother, he said, and he said, Chevrolet, and he said, don't buy a new Chevrolet, buy a rich man's used car. And for all you young people out there, I want to say to you that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad gave us some gems if we would study what he said.
Yes, sir.
Now, I began to study what he said. See, oftentimes we hear somebody say, and we could just go out and do it. You can't do it. You have to study what they say. That's why when the Honorable Minister Farrakhan is teaching, you often hear him say, study what I say.
Yes, sir.
Well, a lot of us get the wrong impression. We say, well, I don't have to study what he says because I believe what he says. So I don't. No, he's not asking you to study it so that you can know that he's telling you the truth. He's asking you to study it so you can understand it the way that he understands it.
Yes,
and
sir.
The only way that you can understand what a man is teaching you, you got to study what he says. And I can give you many examples of that. So I began to study what he said.
Yes,
so
sir.
I would find like white people are not the only people that drive rich men's cars. Black people drive rich men's cars. They're just poor as hell driving a rich man's car.
Yes, sir.
Because sometimes they're living in the project and got this new car downstairs. And so I used to meet with them and I'd say, hey, people that I knew took care of their cars. When you get ready to get rid of it, I like to negotiate. Well, now you have to go back to something else the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us, just 3 words. And there are 2 3-word sentences he said that I have been studying for 66 years.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And I'm doing pretty good with them, but I have not mastered those 3 words yet. The first one is do for self.
Do for self. Yes, sir.
Do for self. And a lot of us, when we hear do for self, that means let's go out and make some money, go into business. No, do for self does not start with going out and making money. Do for self starts with the mind.
Yes,
you
sir.
must first do for yourself spiritually.
Yes, sir.
You must first, then you can do for yourself physically.
Yes, sir.
Then you must do for yourself economically.
Yes,
but
sir.
if you don't do those things first, you can make all the money in the world and it'll be gone before you make it. Just look at your athletes and all the people who are making all the money, and you can know that doing for self, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us and the Supreme Wisdom teaches us, that the first God had to first do for himself.
Yes, sir.
And he was eons doing for self. And then Master Farad Muhammad's father had to do for himself before to prepare himself to do for his son.
Yes, sir.
And
yes,
then his son had to do for himself. And he was years in the making doing for self to prepare himself.
Yes, sir.
So he could come to America 20 years before he introduced himself to us.
Yes, sir.
Doing for self so that he could help us to do for ourselves. So my day, and I might be, because our time is flying, but these things are important, and we can get to those other things some other time if we don't get to them all today. But I have to talk about doing for self.
Yes, sir.
See, when I came into the nation at 17, I went to bed with a book and a dictionary, and I woke up with a book and a dictionary. And so I began anything I wanted, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us, anything you want to know is somewhere in a book.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So to this day, 84 years old, yesterday I was doing laps of the pool. My day starts when I wake up. At my bedside, I wash up, do prayer. I drink 20 ounces of water. Then I do my stretches. Then after I do my stretches, I drink 20 more ounces of water. I come downstairs. I have a weak cup of coffee. That's how I start my day every day.
Praise
Whether
God.
I'm in a hotel room or whatever, I do the same thing every day.
Yes, sir.
I'm swimming 3 days a week doing laps of the pool. Because when I see my contemporaries, it encourages me, because I want to have physical quality of life, and I just don't want to get old.
Yes, sir.
I tell everybody, they say, why are you swimming? I say, I'm trying to outrun rigor mortis, and rigor mortis is a Kenyan. So yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So, but that's how I start my day every day. So continue. Go to the other questions.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. And thank you all for watching. I'm coming right to your comments. I want to say that this podcast episode was brought to you by my sister Miriam's book, ABC, I Love Me, which is a children's book on Amazon. Also, my brother, Politically Oppressed, and his business partner, Jamal, have a video production company called Street Premiere. Thank you all for sponsoring it. My second book is called Cleopatra with a K. It is on Amazon as well as a children's book. Thank you all for your continual support. Brother Minister, I just want to read to you some of the comments. Brother Michael X. Moore says, man, this is priceless what our brother is sharing. Brother Victor P. Muhammad says, Allah Akbar. Thank you so much for the foundation that has helped give me life. Sister Miriam says, all praises to Allah. Brother Michael, Assalamu alaikum, Brother Guys, alaikum salam, sir. Brother Shabazz Aziz says, mashallah, praise be to Allah. Thank you very much, Brother Minister. I want to finish with this. What was your relationship like with Raymond Sharif, who was the Supreme Captain at the time?
Had a great relationship with him because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said of Hartford, he said that Hartford was one of the most peaceful mosques in the Nation of Islam.
Crazy.
So when you have a peaceful mosque, you have a good relationship with the Supreme Captain. And there are many stories, along the lines, and I don't know if you remember the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan taught a believers meeting message in Detroit about 3 or 4 years ago. It was entitled, "If you can't follow, you can't lead."
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
If you remember that, and he talked about a Lord, Brother Lord, in Detroit, in Boston. Brother Ulysses was the minister, his minister in Boston.
Yes, sir.
Whom he was captain for, but this Brother Lord. So there's a story about that and some stories with Malcolm that's kind of long. I won't get into them, but Captain Raymond Sharif, we had a great relationship, and he never had any problems out of us because I heard and I obeyed. And I was blessed to learn at 20 years old from older people. Because when I went to Hartford, every official was older than me. Everybody was. And those are stories within themselves, how that happened. And letters from Malcolm back and forth to me, and what happened in Buffalo, and with this Brother Lord. The minister took us to a certain point with Brother Lord, but then the rest of the story came because he came down to Springfield, and the rest of the story continued. So, and it's too long to get into at this particular time.
Yes, sir.
But there's so many stories but I thank Allah for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, for what it has done for me, that he has learned me. He taught me how to live debt-free. That other three-word sentence that he gave us was debt is slavery.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And maybe sometime I'll come back on and talk about that, because
please, yes, sir.
I'm in the process of, the minister wants me to write my memoirs, what Islam did for me, has done for me. That I have no debts, I live debt-free. That there's a great story about gold, where he came to Miami in 1991, and we were at a sister's house, Sister Anna Lewis. I don't know, she may Allah be pleased with her, but her daughter's house, and we had dinner. And at the dinner table, the minister took out a gold coin, and he placed it on the table, and he pointed to it. And I was sitting beside him. He said, "T," because he told me TJ or T or whatever. He said, "You remember when we were sitting at the messenger's table, and he took out a gold coin, and he said, brothers, and he pointed to it. He said, one day this is going to be the medium of exchange." And I had forgotten all about it. I guess that's why he's our divine reminder.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
He remind that, but that's when I began to study. See, a lot of people talk, buy gold, buy gold. Buy it from where? How much should we buy? How do you know it's gold?
Yes, sir.
Should you take possession? See, there's so many things. Just saying buy gold, yes. But how? I studied it for 2 years before I started to buy it. So all of those stories and all of those things are things that we have to know, that you have to study what people tell you.
Yes,
Don't
sir.
just go out and do it. Then you won't get snared by the traps that are involved in everything when you were dealing in a capitalistic society.
Yes, sir. And thank you, sir. And we would absolutely love to invite you back to speak on those 3 words, that is slavery, and do for self as well. I want to say, Brother Daniel, somebody, Brother Daniel, he sends you the greetings as well. Brother Michael Neil Shabazz says, this brother is a living book. Praise be to Allah. Brother, what about the Imam Wharf Dean, may Allah be pleased with him? What was your relationship like with him?
Well, I first met him, I was 18 and he was 20. See, he and the minister are the same age. They're 2 years older than me. But I was 18 and I met him. And then when I was the minister in Hartford, he became the minister in Philadelphia. Okay. So we had a relationship, as a matter of fact, there's an accident involving Minister Farrakhan and Captain Jabba, who was Captain Clarence, and us going to hear him one Easter. So I had a relationship with him. But after the nation fell, my family, my wife and my children, they followed the Imam, but I never did. And when the minister stood back up, I didn't come back right away, but when I did come back, I came back to the nation. And then I began to visit the masjid and different ones with my sons and different ones. And we have a great relationship. But I have always been NOI.
Yes, sir. I have a question about that, sir. When you say you never followed the Imam, was there something? What was it about you that knew that you were not to go that way once the nation fell? What was it about you that made you not choose that when so many people did choose that way?
Well, there are some things that I'll get into, some things that I wouldn't talk, but I just, what the messenger taught, to me, where I say, some people say it was that Master Farad Muhammad brought us a paradigm shift.
Yes, sir.
I say, he did not bring us a paradigm shift. He brought us a new paradigm.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
A new paradigm.
Yes, sir.
It has nothing to do with the old paradigm. It's not a shift, it's new.
Yes, sir.
And that if we would take our knowledge and put into practice what he taught us, we would be successful. I used it on an individual level where I've not had a mortgage payment in 30 years. Yes, I've not paid a penny in interest, penalties, or late fees in 20 some years.
Yes, sir.
So
yes, sir.
I lived that. See, I took the messenger's teaching on a small scale.
Yes,
now,
sir.
if we did that collectively, we would be independent. It's more difficult to do it collectively because doing it individually, that's why doing it individually was easy for me.
Yes, sir. Yes,
so
sir.
I just continued, I had the first Black clothing store in downtown Hartford, Connecticut.
Praise be so
and so there are many stories and things that I could talk about, but he taught, and I studied Arabic under Akbar, the youngest son of the Hon Elijah Muhammad. He was teaching in New York, and I would drive down every Tuesday and take classes from him. And I also took some classes from Imam. He was correct when I was studying Arabic. Now, I never became proficient in it, but it helped my English, that's for sure.
Yes. Okay, my next question is about Malcom X. When Malcom X split from the nation, what was your how did you feel? Were you torn when that happened? And how did you feel because you had such a close relationship with him, as well as being loyal to the messenger?
I felt as though my mother and father had got divorced.
Mm.
That's how I felt. I didn't want to see it happen. And I loved Malcolm. I learned a lot from Malcolm, and we were very close. The minister was very close.
Yes, sir.
And a lot of people don't know it, but after Malcolm was assassinated, the minister wore a locket around his neck with a picture of Malcolm in it for years. People don't know this, and I don't know whether I should share this or not, but he did. He loved Malcolm.
Yes, sir.
But when Malcolm left the messenger, you know, we thought Malcolm was great, but we thought the Hon Elijah Muhammad was divine.
Yes, sir.
And the only thing that I would say, that any man have a right to leave any place he wants to leave.
Yes, sir.
If Malcolm wanted to leave the nation, he could have, and he should have been able to with no problem. But the way he did it, and he used to tell a joke. I don't know, I guess I've not read any of the books that I've read about Malcolm. I must have about 20, 25 books on Malcolm.
Yes, sir.
And but I've not read any writers of this particular joke. But he used to tell a joke about a man who worked on a plantation, a black man, and he should tell it to bourgeoisies and black leaders. You know, he did different variation of this joke. That he worked on this plantation, and every day when he went to the big house from his shack, he passed a pond, and on this pond there was an alligator. And he would walk past the alligator every morning, go to the big house. One morning he walked past the alligator, and the alligator said, "Good morning, John." And John jumped and went around and walked back past. Alligator said again, "Good morning, John." John ran to the master's house, knocked on the front door, and the master came thinking it's one of his neighbors or something. He said, "Negro, what are you doing at my front door?" He didn't use the word Negro.
Yes, sir. Yes,
sir. He said, "You better get down to the back." He said, "But boss, the alligator spoke to me." He said, "Now, N-word, you know," I don't know if you use the words on your show, but N-word, you know, that alligator can't talk. He said, "Boss, he spoke to me this morning. Come, come, come." He said, "I'm going down there with you, John, to that pond. If that alligator don't speak, I'm gonna put my foot in your behind."
Yes, sir.
And he didn't say behind. So they went down to the pond, and John walked past the alligator. Alligator didn't say. He said, "Good morning, alligator. Speak to the boss. Show the boss you could." Alligator didn't say anything. He got on his knee near the alligator. He said, "Speak to the boss." Alligator didn't say a word. While he was down there, white man just kicked him and stomped him in the ground and left him there with the alligator and went back to the house. And after he left, John rolled over and said, "Why didn't you speak? You know you can talk. Why didn't you speak to the boss while he was speaking?" And he said, "You see, you can't even speak to a nigger unless you run and tell a white man." So these are the kind of things he used to say. But when he left, you know, I believe, had he gone to the Hon Elijah Muhammad, and he told her, I can't follow you any longer. I want to go my own way. I really believe that it would have been a different outcome. And I believe that the Hon Elijah probably would have given him that house that he was living in. And yes, but he went to Mike Wallace and different white, and he did the same thing. He used to say, "Black people, if you have a disagreement, go into the closet, work out your differences, and come out with a united front." These are quotes from Malcom X.
Yes, sir.
And that was the thing that hurt, the most, that he did it. But I loved him, and I love him to this day. Yes, sir. But that was a problem for me, and so
Yes, sir. I have a question. Did you ever see him once he had left? Did you ever like see him in the streets again or bump into him? And how was that interaction if you did?
Not after he left. Before he left, you know, after he was set down, I spoke because I spoke to him, but not after he made the big departure. And the reason, I don't know how much time you have.
Hold on, man. As much time as you need, sir.
No, but I just, there's so light in here, but I have a couple of letters from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and I want to end with this.
Yes, sir.
That this is a very short letter. That when back in the day, well, since I was 21, I had a bleeding ulcer because I had a lot of responsibility at a young age. And what did I know at 20, 21, 22? But I had faith, and faith is very powerful.
Yes, sir.
You can do a lot with faith.
Yes, sir.
Faith can move mountains, and it really can.
Yes, sir.
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said we could do it, and we believe we could.
Yes,
so,
sir.
But I was ill, very ill. I was in the hospital 17 days. Then a couple of years, I was in the hospital 17 days again with this ulcer. And the doctors wanted to take out 2/3 of my stomach. That was the cure. And I wrote to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad a letter of resignation because of this. And this is very brief. It's very brief. He just said, you know, in the name of Allah, in the name of Almighty Allah, the most merciful Savior, our deliverer, Master of the day of judgment. To Allah alone do I submit and seek refuge.
Yes, sir.
Dear brother minister, he starts the letter off, may I help you? ? I never responded to that, ever. He said, I will try to find a brother to take your place for the time being. I cannot say forever, because you may be well soon and want your post back. May Allah bless you and your family. Assalamu alaikum, Elijah Muhammad. Now, a month later, he wrote me, and I didn't respond. And he wrote me another letter, you know, about diet and how I should take care of myself.
Yes, sir.
And so forth, because my ulcer was bleeding. It was really a problem. And, but I'm just going to read the last paragraph of this second letter.
Yes, sir.
Best wishes to you and wife and followers for success. I'm enclosing a cashier's check for the amount of $1,000. If you happen to need more, be not ashamed to ask. For I will help you as long as Allah helps me, and you are trying to help me. You did not say how much you were behind, so I just put in this amount. Elijah Muhammad, Messenger of Allah. Crazy. I mean, can you imagine? That's why I say, see, this is the Elijah Muhammad I knew.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now, you know, I never asked him for anything because he gave me a city. If he gave me a city, I should be able to make a living for myself and my family.
Yes, sir.
And so, but he sent me $1,000. If you would go and calculate that to what $1,000 would be today, it would be much, much more than $1,000.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So that's why I say you have to get to know the man personally, not what you heard of him. You have to know him.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And so I love him, and I followed him all these days and his teachings, and it has put me in a great, great position. So I thank Allah for all of you. I thank Allah for the students and those are people who are listening to you.
Yes, sir.
And I pray Allah something that I've said would be of some value.
Absolutely. Can I ask one more question for Minister?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. What do you want? And thank you all for watching. I just wanted to say, my sister Miriam says beautiful. Thank you everyone who's watching. My sister Naima says all praises to Allah. Brother Michael, you're dead of slavery. Sister Shanika. Well, two questions. If you make, Sister Shanika says, Assalamu alaikum. Where did the brother purchase his gold? Where did you purchase your gold?
But see, that's why I'm saying you just think that should be a whole session.
Okay, yes, sir. We'll bring you back. We'll bring you back.
Because that's what I'll tell you this. Go find a couple of books on how to buy gold. Read them. That'll be a start.
Okay, yes, sir.
Don't just go out and go buy a couple of books. Like we find brochures and things on vacations and all this stuff, but we won't go buy a book on how to buy a house or how to buy a car.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And that's why we are beaten. You know, I drive a Lexus now. I've been driving it. It had 18 miles on it when I got it. It has 280,000 miles on it now. It's 20 years old, but it's still going. Okay, but I am 84 years old.
Praise be to Allah.
All the cars that I've had a couple of Mercedes, I've had Fleetwood Bromes, I've had a lot of nice cars.
Yes, sir.
All the cars I've purchased in my life was less than $50,000 total initial cost. So, but I'm getting ready to change now. I'm going to buy a car, but I'm going to buy a rich man's used car. But you have to be careful. So you have to know, because all these floods, the flooding out in Texas, all these floods that we have, a lot of cars, used cars now, have been flooded out. So they might look good, but you're going to have problems if you buy one of those cars. Yes, so, sir. But there's a brother here who has a dealership. And Brother Daoud, he's partner and manager of a dealership, a Nissan dealership, and he's going to find my next car. So you got to know somebody, you got to find somebody,
yes, sir.
To help you out. Yes, sir.
Praise be to Allah. One last question, sir, if you may. What do you want your legacy to be, sir?
He was a good Muslim. He was a good Muslim. That I don't think about that. I just want to live my life, and the next time we talk, maybe we can talk about integrity, because because that's personal for me. And I studied the Honorable Minister Lewis. Well, I'll go in tech. See, to me, a lot of people try to copy after the minister, and he has a lot of attributes that we can emulate. Yes, I mean, just tons. But there's only one that I really try to strive to do. And if I do that one, all the others will fall in place. And yes, that one is integrity.
Praise be to God.
No matter how great, and I was in a discussion with a brother about 3 years ago, and we start talking about integrity. And I said to him, I said, if I kept my integrity or my word 100% of the time, and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan kept his 20% of the time, I said his integrity would still be greater than mine. He said, man, you can't say that. How can you say that? You know, I said, oh, yes, let me explain to you why. I said, take for instance where I'm sitting at right now.
Yes, sir.
Although I'm 84, I'm in pretty good shape. Yes, sir. I haven't ever had any major illnesses.
Praise be to Allah.
Praise be to Allah. If you strapped 100 pounds to my back, I could struggle with these armrests, and I could stand up 100% with that 100 pounds on my back today.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But if the minister's sitting over here beside me with 10,000 pounds strapped to his back.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And he can come up 20%, his integrity is much greater than mine. That's what I mean by, what is the pressure on my integrity?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What are the forces against my integrity? What are the forces against his integrity?
Yes, sir.
The forces against his integrity is the greatest force mankind have seen.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So how can I compare my integrity to his integrity? Sure, half the people in your audience probably maybe never even heard of me. I can go any place I want to by myself. Nobody, I mean, so there's no pressure on my integrity. All I got to do is do a few things right, save my money. We'll talk about the 25, 50, 75 rule of the Honorable Elijah, what I learned from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. But what I'm saying to you, if we follow and take care of our business, it's very easy for us to keep our integrity and get out of debt and not to get into debt. I say very easy. I'll say easy, not very easy. Easy. It was very easy for me because I started a long time ago. But what I'm saying to you is, look at the pressure on his integrity. He still is the most integral man I know.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So all praise is due to Allah. And I thank him for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and I thank him for the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
Wow. I want to thank everyone for watching this evening. Sister Khadija said that she would love to see you come back. Thank you, Sister Khadija, for openly choosing on Brother Thomas Jehad. Yes, sir, Brother Minister. We would like, I'll text you off of this so we can bring you back, please, next week or sometime very soon to discuss doing for self and how to get out of debt free. I mean, how to be debt free.
I don't know how soon, because see, I used to be in a hurry. And I tell young people, bad planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on mine.
Yes, sir.
So
yes, sir.
I will come back sooner or later. But
yes,
see, the reason that I'm not, people are in a hurry because all of the wisdom that we have been given.
Yes, sir.
And people keep, every time everywhere I go, when you go finish your book, I need your book, I need this. No, you need the study guides. That's number one. You need student enrollment. You need what you already, because how many of us have not heard that the message said debt is slavery?
Yes, sir. That's right.
And do for self. Do for self alone. If you studied it, an encyclopedia could be written on each of those words.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Those three words. So,
yes,
so that's why I'm not in a hurry, because they'll get mine and then they'll be looking for somebody else to say, when is yours coming out? I need yours. See, so that's the mindset of us. We're in a hurry, and because we're overlooking what we already have.
That's right. Yes, sir.
So use what you already have. And so that's what I'm saying. So that I'm not in as big a hurry, because see, the Quran says Allah does not change the condition of a people until they change their own condition.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
Now, what does that mean? And some people might say, well, why do I need God if he don't change my condition till I change my own condition?
Yes, sir.
No, it's talking about until you change your mind. You must take the first step. Just like when they ask you, how many believe and you want to come in, you got to make the first step.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You have to first change your mind. Once you change your mind, you'll change your condition. And until you change your mind, you will not change your condition. And sometimes we have to reach rock bottom. That drug addict have to be down. You can give him all your life. He'll spend everything you got and everything all of us have, and he'll still be a drug addict until one day he makes up in his mind, I can't do this anymore. And in the split second, he's changed his condition. When you change your mind, you change your condition. And until you change your mind, you cannot change your condition. That's why how-tos are not as valuable to me. Only 8% of the people get something out of how-tos, how-to books. And those are people who are already how-toing and trying to find something to help them how-to better. So what I'm saying to you is, you must change the way you think.
Yes, sir.
And your body will follow. Praise
be to Allah. I want to thank you very much, Brother Minister. Sister Khadija, thank you for that question. And thank you all for watching. May Allah bless you, and thank you for your sacrifice and the sacrifice of your family, Brother Minister, as well. Thank you all for watching Off the Record, the People's Podcast. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you.